She walked into the store like any other customer, quiet, calm, and dressed in a plain cardigan with worn-out shoes. Her name was Sarah, a simple woman by all appearances. No designer bag on her shoulder, no loud jewelry, and certainly no air of importance. The luxury boutique sparkled with marble floors, soft lighting, and racks of exclusive designer dresses. The kind of place where customers are usually chauffeured in, not walking in from the street. From the moment she stepped through the glass, doors, eyes turned, but not with admiration, with judgment. The staff barely greeted her. One saleswoman, young and sharply dressed, whispered behind a display stand to her coworker. "She's clearly in the wrong place," she said with a smirk. "Probably just here to look around and dream." Sarah heard it. She didn't flinch. Instead, she walked quietly toward a dress on display, a limited edition gown with a 5-figure box price tag. When she asked if she could try it on, the staff laughed. They told her the fitting rooms were full. They weren't. As the whispers continued and glances turned colder, Sarah's presence began to feel like an intrusion, but she remained composed. Something about her calmness made even the most seasoned staff member uneasy, as if she knew something they didn't. She didn't storm out. She didn't argue. She simply stood her ground. Just then, the front door swung open. An older gentleman in a tailored navy suit stepped in. The owner. He wasn't just respected. He was feared, admired, and known for his perfectionism. One glance around the store, and his eyes landed on Sarah. And then, something shifted. His stern face softened. He walked straight toward her. "Miss Sarah?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The entire store froze. The staff, still holding their judging stares, watched in stunned silence. "I didn't expect to see you here," he continued. "Your grandmother used to shop with us every season. Please forgive the welcome you received." Whispers turned to gasps. The staff who moments ago dismissed her stood paralyzed, their faces drained of color. Who was this woman? What no one in the store knew, and what Sarah had never shared, is that she wasn't just any customer. She carried a last name connected to one of the oldest family fortunes in the city, and her arrival today wasn't by chance. It was the beginning of something none of them could have imagined. But what secret was Sarah really hiding? And why? Had she stayed silent all this time? The room felt frozen in time. Sarah looked at the owner with a calm expression. But behind her eyes, something flickered. An old memory, maybe even pain. The employees stood awkwardly in the silence they had created, unsure whether to apologize or vanish into the racks of silk and sequins. The owner gently offered Sarah a seat near the lounge area, a space usually reserved for VIP clients. No one dared stop her this time. As she sat down, Sarah's thoughts drifted back to a time she'd buried for years. Her grandmother, Margaret Whitmore, had been one of the boutique's most exclusive patrons. The Whitmore name once carried weight, old, money, quiet power, generations of wealth that kept their affairs private. But after her parents' passing when she was a teenager, Sarah had distanced herself from the Whitmore legacy. She traded lavish estates and high society dinners for a modest life in the countryside, where she ran a small but thriving pottery business. She never flaunted her last name, never felt the need to prove anything. But she never forgot where she came from, and today she didn't walk into that boutique as Margaret Whitmore's granddaughter. She walked in as Sarah, the woman who built her life with her own hands. That was the part the staff hadn't seen, and maybe never would have, if the owner hadn't recognized her. The boutique owner, Mr. Leland, hadn't seen Sarah in nearly a decade. He remembered her as a quiet, observant girl who sat beside her grandmother during private fittings. He remembered how Margaret always said, "This one will surprise you all one day." As he watched Sarah now, sitting in the same lounge where her grandmother once sipped tea, he realized Margaret had been right. Meanwhile, The staff's unease grew with each passing second. The lead associate, Amanda, stepped back from the velvet display table, clearly trying to piece things together. Her earlier comments echoed in her head. She had judged Sarah based on appearance, not knowing that the woman she mocked held more history with the boutique than anyone else in the room. Still, Sarah remained quiet. She hadn't come to expose anyone. But there was a reason she'd walked in today. Something more than just shopping. Her eyes scanned the store slowly, stopping at a portrait hanging on the back wall. It was her grandmother, captured in dye, a black and white photo, dressed in elegance and pride. What brought Sarah back after all these years? What was the real reason behind her visit? As the tension thickened and questions hung in the air, one thing became clear. This wasn't just about a dress. It was about unfinished business and secrets long buried beneath silk and gold. Sarah's fingers traced the edge of the armrest as her gaze lingered on the photo of her grandmother. The moment felt surreal, like the past had suddenly collided with the present. Mr. Leland noticed the shift in her expression, but he didn't speak. He could sense something deeper was at play, a reason far beyond nostalgia or wardrobe shopping. Meanwhile, in the back of the store, Amanda and the other associates huddled near the counter. Their voices were hushed, but the panic in their tone was unmistakable. Amanda pulled out her phone, discreetly searching the name Sarah Whitmore. Her eyes widened as article after article popped up. Family trust funds, historic estates, private donations to major charities. This woman wasn't just connected. She was someone their store had once catered to, before she disappeared from the scene completely. Why is she here now? Amanda whispered. And why didn't anyone warn us? Across the room, Sarah stood up. She walked slowly to the portrait, taking it in up close. Mr. Leland joined her. "We never took that down," he said softly. "Your grandmother's legacy still means something here." Sarah gave a quiet nod, but her voice was firm. Legacy is only valuable when it's respected. When people remember the values behind it, not just the wealth. He understood. In that moment, he saw the woman Margaret had always believed she'd become. But even he couldn't ignore the real question. Why now? Sarah turned, her eyes scanning the boutique once more. "I'm here," she began, "because there's something Margaret left behind. Something I need to find before someone else does." Mr. Leland's face tensed. "You mean the registry book?" he asked carefully. Sarah nodded. "She told me, just before she passed, that she had placed something in the store's old client records. Something about a deal. A name. She didn't say much, only that it could change everything." Back at the counter, Amanda's phone slipped slightly from her grip. She had just overheard enough to feel a chill crawl up her spine. A name? A deal? What was in those records, and why did it feel like her own job might now be at risk? Another layer of tension filled the store. There was no more laughing, no more dismissive glances. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't a casual visit. Sarah was here to uncover something buried, something that someone might not want her to find. And as Sarah made her way toward the back office, past staff who now looked at her with silent respect and growing fear, one thought echoed louder than ever. Whatever her grandmother left behind, it wasn't meant to stay hidden forever. The boutique's back office hadn't changed much in the years since Sarah had last seen it. The same. Mahogany shelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound ledgers and boxes marked with fading labels. Dust floated in the light filtering through the blinds, and the air smelled faintly of aged paper and forgotten perfume. Mr. Leland hesitated at the door, but then motioned her inside. "The old records are in here," he said, almost nervously. "We stopped using them years ago. Everything's digital now. But your grandmother was particular." Sarah stepped inside, her heart pounding. She hadn't been in this room since she was a teenager. always waiting quietly while Margaret discussed private fittings or discreet transactions. Back then, she didn't understand the weight those conversations carried, but now, every memory felt like a clue she'd overlooked. Mr. Leland pulled out a heavy box labeled Private Clients, 1998-2005. He placed it on the desk, his hands shaking slightly. "If she left something, it'll be here." Sarah opened the box and began sifting through the files. Each page held names, purchase logs, discreet appointments, handwritten notes in her grandmother's elegant script. Some entries had small symbols next to them, stars, arrows, initials, things that meant nothing to the average eye. But to Sarah, it was a code. She remembered her grandmother saying, "If something ever happens to me, follow the stars." She flipped faster now, searching for the marks, her pulse racing. Finally, toward the back of the logbook, she found it. An entry under the name A. Langford. A star. A triangle. A faint circle drawn beside it. Amanda lingered just outside the door, pretending to dust a shelf. Her curiosity had shifted into something sharper. Worry. She had once heard that name whispered in the boutique years ago. A. Langford. A rare client. One who never came in person, always paid in cash. Rumors said he was connected to something bigger than fashion, something darker. Sarah stared at the symbols. "This is it," she whispered. This is what she was trying to protect. "What does it mean?" Mr. Leland asked. Sarah didn't answer. She closed the book gently, her eyes narrowing. "I think someone in this store helped cover something up. Maybe years ago, maybe without realizing it. But now it's tied to me." Outside, a black SUV pulled up in front of the boutique, tinted windows. The engine idled, but no one got out. Amanda glanced nervously toward the door. Sarah turned slowly, her expression unreadable. "I think coming here wasn't just about finding answers," she said. "It was about waking up the people who didn't want me to." And at that moment, every shadow in the room felt heavier, like someone was already watching. Sarah moved away from the desk, her mind spinning as she clutched the old logbook. The air in the boutique had shifted. What started as quiet humiliation had now unraveled into something far more layered, tied not just to her past, but to something her grandmother had feared enough to hide in code. Mr. Leland locked the office, door behind them, more out of instinct than caution. But Sarah didn't miss the way his hand trembled. In the front of the boutique, Amanda stood near the entrance, eyeing the black SUV. It hadn't moved, and no one had stepped out. But something about it made her stomach twist. "Should we call someone?" one of the younger associates whispered. Amanda ignored her. She was starting to realize that whatever Sarah Whitmore was digging up, she might already be in the middle of it too. Sarah emerged from the hallway just as the boutique door opened. The small chime rang, but this time, no customer entered. A man in a dark gray coat stood just outside the threshold. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He only glanced around the boutique like he was checking the space, measuring it. Then his eyes locked on Sarah. He gave her a nod, cold, precise, and walked back to the SUV, which pulled away without a sound. Mr. Leland watched through the window, clearly disturbed. "That wasn't a shopper," he said. "No," Sarah replied quietly. That was a warning. She returned to the photo of her grandmother once more, staring at it with new clarity. There was something Margaret knew, something about the Langford name, about the transactions no one talked about. A second entry in the logbook, which Sarah had only just noticed, sat under a different name. But the handwriting, it wasn't her grandmother's. It was Mr. Leland's. She didn't confront him, not yet. But the realization hit hard. Her grandmother hadn't been alone in this. And now, Sarah wasn't either. Someone else had been helping her cover it up. Or maybe someone had betrayed her. Back at the counter, Amanda received a text on her phone from a blocked number. It read, "She's getting too close. Handle it." Her face went pale, her grip tightening on the phone. The walls of the boutique no longer felt safe. Every mirror felt like a two-way window, every shadow stretched. A little too far. Sarah looked around and finally said aloud, "This wasn't just about family money or inheritance. This is something much deeper, and someone doesn't want it exposed." As tension crackled through the room, one thing was certain: the real reason behind Sarah's return had only just begun to surface. The boutique felt tense, like the calm before a storm. Sarah clutched the logbook as she turned back toward Mr. Leland. Her voice was low but steady. "You wrote that second entry," she said. "Not my grandmother. You knew something. Either you helped her, or you were part of what she was trying to stop." Mr. Leland didn't deny it. He took a slow breath and sat down, eyes locked on the floor. "She trusted me." Margaret knew the Langford deal wasn't just about exclusive dresses or secret clients. It involved laundering money through high-end purchases made by ghost clients. The boutique was one of several fronts. I didn't realize it at first. But by the time I knew, I was in too deep. Sarah's heart pounded. So why hide it all? She thought if the records were destroyed, the connections would fade. "But I couldn't bring myself to burn the truth," he said. "So I buried it in the books, trusting only you would ever know how to read the signs." As they spoke, Amanda watched from across the room. The pressure from the text message still weighed on her, but she was torn. Everything she had built in this boutique, her career, her image, was now entangled in something far bigger than she'd imagined. Suddenly, the door burst open. Two men in tailored suits entered without a word, scanning the room quickly. One of them stepped toward Sarah. "Miss Whitmore," he said, flashing a badge. "We've been following a paper trail linked to a laundering ring hidden in luxury retailers. We believe your grandmother's records hold the final piece of evidence." Sarah's pulse skipped. "So you've been watching?" "Not just watching," the agent said. "We needed someone on the inside who could unlock the original records without raising suspicion." Mr. Leland stood slowly. "You used her?" "No," the agent replied. "We trusted her, because Margaret did." Sarah handed over the logbook, her hands shaking only slightly. The agent nodded. "This will be enough to shut them down." Just as the tension started to ease, Amanda stepped forward. "Wait," she said, her voice trembling. "There's one more name. Not in the book, but someone who's been deleting digital backups for weeks." She pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "I saved it. I didn't know who to trust, until now." Everyone turned, stunned. Mr. Leland looked at her in disbelief. Sarah nodded slowly, a mix of relief and shock in her eyes. Outside, the same SUV had returned, but this time, it was empty. And parked behind it was an unmarked van. The takedown was already in motion. But as the agents turned to leave, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You found the boutique files, but you're still missing the vault." Her breath caught. The truth wasn't finished with her yet. Sarah stood in the quiet boutique long after the agents left, the message on her phone still glowing on the screen. "You're still missing the vault." It was the kind of line that begged to open another door, but for now she let it go. She had uncovered enough for one day. The laundering ring tied to Langford would be dismantled, thanks to the hidden client records, Amanda's flash drive, and her grandmother's quiet defiance. The secrets woven into silk and luxury tags had finally unraveled. Amanda sat on a stool, near the register, the weight of it all finally catching up to her. She looked at Sarah, unsure what to say. "I didn't know how far it went. I just wanted to move up in the store, impress the right people. I never meant to get caught in something criminal." Sarah offered a tired but honest smile. Sometimes, we don't see the bigger picture until we're standing right in the middle of it. Her words weren't harsh. She wasn't there to blame. Amanda had made a choice to step forward, and that mattered. Mr. Leland, now quietly packing up the logbooks, looked older than he had just hours before. "Your grandmother would have been proud," he said. "She never stopped believing you'd come back one day." Sarah looked around the boutique, once a place of silent judgment, now a scene of quiet reckoning. The humiliation she'd faced, just hours earlier, had turned into something else entirely. Respect, closure, even justice. Her simple arrival had cracked open a world carefully hidden behind designer labels and locked drawers. As she left the boutique, the sunlight hit her face just right. She took a deep breath. The air felt different now, cleaner. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her attorney confirming that the trust her grandmother set aside years ago, quietly waiting for her return, was now officially released. Not for luxury, but for rebuilding. For purpose. Sarah walked down the street with a clearer sense of who she was. Not just a woman from old money, not just a pottery artist from the countryside, but someone who chose truth over comfort. Someone who stood up, even when no one expected her to. The boutique behind her would recover, maybe even become better for it. And the legacy her grandmother protected wasn't in gold or garments, it was in courage. As the door closed behind her for the last time, one thing was certain: wealth fades, but the power of honesty, grit, and quiet strength will always outlast the shine. And far beneath the city, in a vault still waiting, another secret slept, until the right hands came knocking.